Bhishma Nirvana by Dr. Nilesh Oak. Chapter 4 Astronomy Evidence. It's been said that astronomy is humbling. I might add a character building experience. Carl Sagan. The chronology evidence of the Mahabharata text decisively proves that the minimum duration of Bhishma on the bed of arrows must equal 92 days. This is an extremely robust estimate for the minimum duration of Bhishma on the bed of arrows. In this chapter, we will analyze evidence of the Mahabharata text to determine the lunar tithi, lunar paksha, that is fortnight, and lunar month for the day of Bhishma Nirvana. We will also look for any clues that allow us to identify specific lunar month or months for the timing of the Mahabharata war and for the day of Bhishma Nirvana. Astronomy evidence can be classified into three segments. 1. Evidence of seasons. 2. Lunar evidence. 3. Lunar calendar evidence. We will begin with evidence of seasons. 4.1 Evidence of seasons. 4.1.1 Chronology plus winter solstice. Bhishma was on the bed of arrows for more than 92 days. Let's use this limiting case of 92 days and go backwards in time from the day of the winter solstice, since winter solstice was the day of Bhishma Nirvana. When we go backwards, beginning with the day of the winter solstice, by 60 days, the season of Hemanta would be over. When we go backwards by additional 30 days, the second half of Sharad season would be over. We would have to go backward for at least 2 days, that is total of 92 days as a limiting case, to the day of the fall of Bhishma in the battle on the 10th day of the war. This also means that Mahabharata war began at least 12 days before the first month of Sharad season was over. This conclusively establishes that the major part of the Mahabharata war, minimum of 12 days out of 18 days, took place during the first half of the 2 months of the Sharad season. 4.1.2 Suitable season for the war. The Mahabharata text provides additional evidence in support of the conclusion of the war taking place during the first half of Sharad season. Bhishma refers to lunar months of Margashirsha and Chaitra at times of the year when the crops are matured and water is ample in supply, and thus a good time to initiate military excursions of wars if the army is ready, since the weather near these lunar months is neither too hot nor too cold. Shanti Parva CE 101 8-10 GP 100 10-11 अभिनीतानि शस्त्राणि योधाश्च कृतनिश्चमः चैत्रां वा मार्गशीर्षान् वा सेनायोगः प्रशस्यते पक्वसस्या हि पृथिवी भव्यतं भुमति तथा नैवातिशितो तात्युष्णः कालो भवति भारत तस्मात् तदा योजयेत परेषां व्यसनेषु वा एतेषु योगाः सेनायाः प्रशस्तः परबाधने. And Krishna refers to, during his conversations with Karna, the upcoming and suitable time for the war. He describes the season as neither too hot nor too cold, when vegetation, fruits and grains are in ample supply, clean water is available, and the land is free from mud and flies. Udyog Parva CE 140 16-17 GP 142 16 and 17 ब्रूयाः कर्ण इतो गत्वा द्रोणं शान्तनवं कृपं सौम्योऽयं वर्तते मासः सुप्रापय अवसेन्दन पक्वौषधि वनस्पितः फलवानल्पमक्षिकः निष्पङ्को रसवत्तोयो नात्युष्ण शिशिरः सुखः निष्पङ्को रतवत्तोयो नात्युष्ण शिशिरः सुखः. 4.1.3 Evidence of Sharad through 18 days of the war. The war descriptions for the first 10 days of the war have numerous references to Sharad season. Bhishma Parva CE 1728 GP 1728 तडङ्गपतिना गुप्तं कृपेण च महात्मना शारदा व्रचय प्रख्यं प्राच्या नाम भवद्दलम्. Bhishma Parva CE 55-15 and GP 59-16 विकर्णैः कवचैश्च त्रैर्ध्वजैश्च मारिष शुशुभे तद्रणस्थानं शरदिव नभस्थलम्. Bhishma Parva CE 89-4 and GP 93-4. अथैनं शरवर्षेण समन्तात्पर्यवारयन पर्वतं वारिधाराभिः शरदेव बलाहकः. Bhishma Parva CE 89-6 and GP 93-6. व्यनहत् सुमहानादं जीभूत इव शारदः दिशः खं प्रदिशश्चैव नादयन् भैरवस्वनः. Bhishma Parva CE 90-16 and GP 94-17. भूयश्चैनं महाबाहुः शरैः शीघ्रमवाकिरत् पर्वतं वारिधाराभिः शरदीव बलाहकः. Bhishma Parva CE 93-22 and GP 97-22. अरजोम्बरसंवितः सिंहकेलगतिर्नृपः शुशुभे विमलार्चिष्म शरदिव दिवाकरः. Bhishma Parva CE 112-130 GP 117-56. तद्रजाश्वरथौघानां रुधिरेण समुक्षितं छन्नमायोधनं रेजे रक्ताभ्रमिव शारदम्. The descriptions of Sharad season continue through the 5 days of the war when Drona was the leader of Duryodhana's army. Drona Parva CE 1941 GP 2040. विक्षरद्भिर्न दद्भिक्ष निपतद्भिक्ष वारणैः संबभूव महीकीर्णा मेघे द्यौरिव शारदी. द्रोणपर्व CE 37-20 GP 38-21. मृदुर्भूत्वा महाराज दारुणः समपद्यत वर्षाभ्यतितो भगवात् शरदिव दिवाकरः. द्रोणपर्व CE 96-5 GP 125. सधनुर्मण्डलः संख्ये तेजो भास्वर रश्मिवान् शरदिवोदितः सूर्यो नृसूर्यो विरराजः. द्रोणपर्व CE 107-35 GP 132-39. ताभ्यां मुक्ता व्यकाशन्त कङ्कं बर्हिण वाससः पङ्क्त्यः शरदिमत्ताना सारसान् मिवाम्बरे. द्रोणपर्व CE 114-20 GP 139-26. ततः क्रुद्धः शरान्यस्यन् सूतपुत्रो व्यरोचित मध्यन्दिनगतोर्चिष्मा शरदिव दिवाकरः. द्रोणपर्व CE 117-16 GP 142-16-17. किं मृषोक्तेन बहुना कर्मणा तु समाचर शारदस्यैव मेघस्य गर्जितं निष्फलं हिते. द्रोणपर्व CE 155-26 GP 180-26-27. मध्यंगत इवादित्यो यो न शक्यो निरीक्षितुं त्वदीयैः पुरुषव्याघ्र योधमुखेर् महात्मभिः शरजाललसहस्रांशुः शरदिव दिवाकरः. द्रोणपर्व CE 162-37 GP 187-39. ते रथान् सूर्य संकाशानस्थितः पुरुषर्षभः अशोभन्त यथा मेघः शारदः समुपस्थितः. The descriptions of Sharad season continue through the second day of the war when Karna was the leader of Duryodhana's army. Karna Parva CE 8-23 GP 12-23. तस्यायसं वर्मवरं वररत्न विभूषितं तारोद्भा सस्य नभसः शारदस्य समत्विषम्. कर्णपर्व GP 1951. तारागणविचित्रस्य निर्मलेन्दुद्युतित्विषः पश्चेमां नभसस्तुल्यां शरन्नक्षत्रमालिनीम्. कर्णपर्व CE 68-24 GP 94-15. विमुक्तयन्त्रे निहितैर्यस्मये रतार्नुषङ्गै अर्विनिषङ्ग बन्धुरैः प्रभग्ननिर्डैर्मणि हेमपण्डितैः स्तुतामही द्यौरिव शारदैर्घनैः. The descriptions of Sharad season continued through the last and 18th day of the war when Shalya was the leader of Duryodhana's army. Shalya Parva CE 328 GP 428. वायुनेव विधूतानि तवानि काशि सर्वशः शरदं बोधजलानि व्यशीर्यन्त समन्ततः. शल्यपर्व GE 32-49 GP 33-55. मावृथा गर्ज कौन्तेय शारदा भ्रमिवाजलं दर्शयस्व बलं युद्धे यावत् तत्तेद्य विद्यते. शल्यपर्व CE 45-49 GP 46-55-56. सासेना नैऋती भीमा सघंटोश्रितकेतना सभेरीशंमुरजा सायुधा सपताकिनी शारदी दौरिवा भाती ज्योतिर्भिरूपशोभिता. शल्यपर्व CE 54-27 GP 55-32 and 33. अन्योन्यमभिधावन्तो मत्ताविव महाद्वीपौ वाशिता संगमे द्रुप्तौ शरदीव मदोत्कटौ. The descriptions of Sharad season continue post-war as the Kuru women arrived at Kurukshetra to identify the bodies of their loved ones. Stri Parva CE 19-2 and GP 19-2. Gajamadhya gataha shete vikarno madhusudana neelamegha parikshiptaha sharadiva divakaraha. Stri Parva CE 25-16 and GP 25-16. पांचाल राज्ञो विपुलम पुंडरीकाक्ष पांडुरम आतपत्रम समाभाति शरदीव दिवाकरः. 4.2 Lunar Evidence. Lunar phases and positions of the moon define the days of lunar month. The Mahabharata text preserves detailed evidence through the 18 days of the war. We will evaluate phases and positions of the moon through the 18 days of the war and 1 day after the war. This evidence establishes Shukla Paksha, that is waxing fortnight, and Margashirsha Shukla Paksha as the timing of Mahabharata war. Further, this evidence also corroborates Kartik Amavasya as the first day of the Mahabharata war. 4.2.1 Phases of the moon. The moon is conspicuous by its absence in Mahabharata descriptions during the first 7 days of the war. One must wait until the 8th day of the war to read descriptions of the war scenes and their comparisons with the moon, and one must wait until the 12th day of the war to read descriptions of the full moon. These full moon descriptions continue from the day 12 through the 18th day of the war and even on the day after the war. While the battle stopped immediately at the sunset on the first 5 days of the war, it extended for some time after sunset on the 6th day. On the 7th day of the war, Duryodhana asked his warriors to hurry up and intensify the attack as the sun turned on the western horizon. However, the battle stopped at sunset. The battle continued into the night of the 8th and 9th day of the war. On the 10th day, the battle came to a standstill with the falling of Bhishma. The warriors were exhausted and the battle stopped at sunset on the 11th and 12th day of the war. On the 13th day, the Kaurava warriors returned to the camp after killing Abhimanyu, while the Pandava warriors stood in sadness at the sunset. The fighting continued throughout the night on the 14th day of the war until sunrise, and the fighting continued all day during the 15th day of the war and ended up with the death of Drona. At the end of the 16th day, the darkness set in due to dust, and warriors felt frightened about fighting at night and returned to their camps. Karna was killed at the end of the 17th day, and exhausted Kaurava warriors ran away and were chased by Bhima, Drishtadyumna and other Pandava warriors. Kaurava warriors stayed and slept on the very battlefield during that night. The war ended with the defeat of Duryodhana on the 18th day. However, Duryodhana made Ashwathama the leader of his army, and Ashwathama, along with Kripacharya and Kritavarma, attacked the Pandava camp late at night. These descriptions are consistent with the scenario of the war beginning on or near Amavasya day and then continuing for 18 consecutive days, most of it through the Shukla Paksha. Let's evaluate the Shukla Paksha evidence via the phases of the moon through the 18 days of the war. 4.2.1.1 First day of the war. The Mahabharata text has many suggestive descriptions of the solar eclipse for the first day of the war. However, there is no clear evidence for the solar eclipse itself. Bhishma Parva CE 17.3 GP 17.3. द्विधाभूत इवादित्य उदये प्रत्यदृश्यत ज्वलन्त्या शिखया भूयो भानुमानोदितो दिवि. Bhishma Parva CE 1936-39 GP 37-40. Sandhya tishtatu sainyeshu सूर्यसोदयनं प्रति प्रावात्सपृशतो वायुर नभ्रेस्तनयिन तुमान विश्वग्वाताक्ष वान्त्युग्रा नीचयः शर्करकर्षिणः रजश्चोद्धूयमानं तु तमसाच्छादय जगत् पपात महती चोल्का प्राङ्मुखी भरतर्षभ उद्यन्तं सूर्यमाहात्य व्यशीर्यत महास्वना। अथ सज्जीयमानेषु सैन्येषु भरतर्षभ निष्प्रभोभ्य उदया सूर्यः सघोषो भूश्चालः। भीष्म पर्व CE 42:28 GP 44:28। उभयोः सेनयोस्तीव्रः सैन्यानां समागमः अन्तर्धीयत चादित्यः सैन्येन रजसावृतः। The fighting stopped on the first day with the sunset, and the darkness was such that it was impossible to decipher anything. Bhishma Parva CE 45:62 GP 49:52। ततः सैन्येषु भग्नेषु मथितेषु च सर्वशः प्राप्ते चास्तं दिनकरेण प्राज्ञायत किंचन। 4.2.1.2 Second day of the war. The fighting stopped on the second day with the sunset. Bhishma Parva CE 51:40-43 GP 55:40-43। एष चास्तं गिरिश्रेष्ठं भानुमान् प्रतिपद्यते वपुंषि सर्वलोकस्य संहरनीव सर्वथा। तत्रावहरं सम्प्राप्तं मन्येऽहं पुरुषर्षभ श्रान्ताभिताश्च नो योधा न योत्सन्ति कथञ्चन। एवमुक्त्वा ततो भीष्मो द्रोणमाचार्य सत्तमम् अवहारमथो चक्रे तावकानां महारथः। ततो वहारः सैन्यानां तव तेषाञ्च भारत अस्तं गच्छति सूर्योऽभूत् सन्ध्याकाले च वर्तति। 4.2.1.3 Third day of the war. Satyaki and Abhimanyu were forced to fight from the same chariot with the Kaurava army on the third day of the war, and the Mahabharata author compares them to the view of the sun and the moon together as seen on the past or recent Amavasya day. Bhishma Parva CE 54:23 GP 58:25। शुशुभाते तदा तौ तु शैनेय कुरुपुङ्गवो अमावस्यां गतो यद्वत् सोमसूर्यो नभस्थले। The battlefield on the third day of the war was like the autumnal star-studded sky. Bhishma Parva CE 55:15 GP 59:16। विकीर्णैः कवचैश्चत्र त्रैर्ध्व जैश्च त्रैश्च मारीश शुशुभे तद्रणस्थानं शरदीव नभस्थलम्। The battle ended with the sunset. Bhishma Parva CE 55:127-129 GP 59:131-133। ततो रविं संहृतरश्मिजालं दृष्ट्वा भ्रूशं शस्त्रपरीक्षताङ्गाः तदैन्द्रमस्त्रं विततं सुघोर मसय्यमुद्वीक्ष्य युगान्तकल्पम्। अथापयानं कुरुवः सभीक्षा सद्रोणदुर्योधनबालिकाश्च चक्रुर्निशां सन्दिगतां समीक्ष्य विभावसोर्लोहितराजियुक्ताम्। अवाप्य कीर्तिञ्च यशश्च लोके विजित्य शत्रुंश्च धनञ्जयोऽपि ययौ नरेन्द्रेः सहसोदरेश्च समाप्तकर्मा शिबिरं निशायाम्। 4.2.1.4 Fourth day of the war. The battle ended with the sunset. Bhishma Parva CE 60:73-77 GP 64:81-85। कौरवास्तु ततो राजन् प्रययुः शिबिरं स्वकं व्रीडमाना निशाकाले पाण्डवेयैः पराजितः। शरवीक्षतगात्राश्च पाण्डुपुत्रा महारथाः युद्धे सुमनस्सो भूत्वा शिबिरायैव जग्मिरे। पुरस्कृत्य महाराज भीमसेन घटोत्कचौ पूजयन्तस्तदान्योन्यं मुदा परमया युतः। नदन्तो विविधान्नादां स्तूर्यस्वनविमिश्रितान् सिंहनादाश्च कुर्वाणा विमिश्रान् शङ्खनिस्वनैः विनदन्तो महात्मानः कम्पयन्तश्च मेदिनीं घट्यन्तश्च मर्माणि तव पुत्रस्य मारीश प्रयाताः शिबिरायैव निशाकाले परन्तपः। 4.2.1.5 Fifth day of the war. The battle ended with the sunset. Bhishma Parva CE 70:31-37 GP 74:33-39। लोहिता यति चादित्ये त्वरमाणो धनञ्जयः पञ्चविंशतिसहस्रा निजघान महारथान् ते हि दुर्योधनादिष्टस्तदा पार्थनिबर्हणे सम्प्राप्यैव गतानाशं शलभा इव पावकं। ततो मत्स्याः केकयाश्च धनुर्वेदविशारदः परिबभ्रुस्तदा पार्थं सह पुत्रं महारथम्। एतस्मिन्नेव काले तु सूर्यस्तम उपगच्छति। सर्वेषामेव सैन्यानां प्रमोहः समजायत। अवहारं ततश्चक्रे पिता देवव्रतस्तव। संध्याकाले महाराज सैन्यानां श्रान्तवाहनः। पाण्डवानां कुरूणां च परस्परसमागमे ते सेने भृशसंविघ्ने ययतुः स्वं निवेशनं। ततः स्वशिबिरं गत्वा न्यविशंस्तत्र भारत। पाण्डवाः सृज्यैः सार्धं कुरुवश्च यथाविधि। 4.2.1.6 Sixth day of the war. Duryodhana made a fresh attack on Bhima as the sun turned red on the western horizon. Bhishma Parva CE 75-1 GP 79-1. ततो दुर्योधनो राजा लोहिता यति भास्करे संग्राम रभसो भीरम हन्तु कामो vyadhavat. The fighting continued for some time after the sunset on the sixth day of the war. Bhishma Parva CE 75-55-56 and GP 79-60. अन्योन्यागस्कृतां राजन् यमराष्ट्रविवर्धनं मुहूर्तास्तमिते सूर्ये चक्रुर्युद्धं सदारुणं रथिनः सादिनश्चैव व्यकीर्यन्त सहस्रशः. Both parties returned to their camps. Bhishma Parva CE 75-58-59 GP 79-63-64. एवं भीत्वा महेश्वासः पाण्डवानां मनीकिनं कृत्वा वहारं सैन्यानां ययौ स्वशिबिरं नृप. धर्मराजोऽपि सम्प्रेक्ष्य दृष्टद्युम्नो वृकोदरौ मूर्ध्नि चैतावुप्राज्ञाय सन्दृष्टः शिबिरं ययौ. 4.2.1.7 Seventh day of the war. As the sun turned red in the western horizon, Duryodhana asked warriors on his side to hurry and intensify the attack. The battle ended with the sunset. Bhishma Parva CE 82-40-56 GP 86-63-64. ततो दुर्योधनो राजा लोहिता यति भास्करे अब्रवीत्ता वकान् सर्वान् स्त्वरध्वमिति भारत. युध्यन्तां तु तथा तेषां कुर्वन्तां कर्म दुष्करम्. अस्तं गिरिमथारूढे न प्रकाशति भास्करे. प्रावर्त नदी घोरा शोणितौघतरङ्गिणी गोमायुक्तसंकीर्णा क्षणेन रजनीमुखे. शिवाभिश्च रुवद्भिः भैरवं रवं घोरमायोधनं जज्ञे भूतसङ्घसमाकुलं. राक्षसाश्च पिशाचाश्च तथान्ये पिशिताशनः समन्ततो व्यदृश्यन्त शतशोथ सहस्रशः. अर्जुनोऽथ सुशर्मादीन् तज्ञस्तान् सपदानुगान् विजित्य पृतना मध्ये ययौ स्वशिबिरं प्रति. युधिष्ठिरोऽपि कौरव्यो भ्रातृभ्यां सहितस्तदा ययौ स्वशिबिरं राजा निशायां सेनयावृतः. भीमसेनोऽपि राजेन्द्र दुर्योधनमुखान्ततान् अवजित्य तथा संख्ये ययौ स्वशिबिरं प्रति. दुर्योधनोऽपि नृपतिः परिवार्य महारणे भीष्मशान्तनवं तूर्णं प्रयातः शिबिरं प्रति. द्रोणो द्रौणिः कृपः शल्यः कृतवर्मा च सात्वतः परिवार्य चमुं सर्वां प्रययुः शिबिरं प्रति. तथैव सात्यकी राजन् दृष्टद्युम्नश्च पार्श्वतः परिवार्य रणे योधान् नयतुः शिबिरं प्रति. एवमेते महाराज तावकः पाण्डवैः सह पर्यवर्तनसहिता निशाकाले परन्तपः. ततः स्वशिबिरं गत्वा पाण्डवाः कुरुवस्तथा न्यविशन्त महाराज पूजयन्तः परस्परं. रक्षां कृत्वात्मनः शूरा न्यस्य गुल्मान्य यथाविधिः अपनीय च शल्यांस्ते स्नात्वा च विविधैर्जलैः कृतस्वस्ते यनः सर्वे संस्तुयन्तश्च बन्दिभिः गीतवादित्रशब्देन व्यक्रीडन्त यशस्विनः. मुहूर्तमिव तत्सर्वं भवत्स्वर्गसन्निभं न हि युद्धकथां कञ्चित् अत्र चक्रुर्महारथाः. ते प्रसुप्ते बले तत्र परिश्रान्तजने नृप हस्त्यश्व बहुले राजन् प्रेक्षणीये बभूवतुः. 4.2.1.8 Eighth day of the war. As the sunset approached, Ghatatkocha defeated the Kaurava army and warriors of the Kaurava army began running towards their camps. Bhishma and Sanjaya made a feeble attempt to stop them from running away but failed. Bhishma Parva CE 90-43-46 GP 94-46-50. तद्दृष्ट्वा तावकं सैन्यं विद्रुतं शिबिरं प्रति मम प्राकोशतो राजन् तथा देवव्रतस्य च युध्यध्वं मा पलायध्वं मायैषा राक्षसी रणे घटोत्कच प्रयुक्तेति नातिष्ठन्त विमोहिताः नैव ते श्रद्धुर्भिता वदतो रावयोर्वचः ताश्चं प्रद्रवतो दृष्ट्वा जयं प्राप्ताश्च पाण्डवाः घटोत्कचेन सहितः सिंहनादान् प्रचक्रिरे शङ्खदुन्दुभिघोषाश्च समन्तात् सस्वनुर्वृशम् एवं तव बलं सर्वं हैडिम्बेन दुरात्मना सूर्यास्तमनवेलायां प्रभग्नं विद्रुतं दिशः. The battle continued into the night and the place looked like the sky filled with planets and nakshatras. Bhishma Parva CE 92-73-75, GP 96-75-77. नरेन्द्र चूडामणिभिर्विचित्रैश्च महाघनैः छत्रैस्तथा पविद्धैश्च चामरव्यजनैरपि पद्मेन्दुद्युतिभिश्चैव वदनैश्चारुकुण्डलैः क्लुप्तश्मश्रुभिरत्यर्थं वीराणां समलङ्कृते अपविद्धैर्महाराज सुवर्णोज्जलकुण्डलैः ग्रहनक्षत्रशबला द्यौरिवासीद्वसुन्धरा. The fight continued into the night on the 8th day of the war until fighters on both sides were utterly exhausted and until leaders of both sides ordered to stop the fight. Many fighters had run away from the battlefield while many others were feeling sleepy and could not see each other. Bhishma Parva CE 92-77-79, GP 96-78-80. तेषु श्रान्तेषु भग्नेषु मृदितेषु च भारत रात्रिः समभवद्धोरा नापश्याम ततोरणम् ततो वहारं सैन्यानां प्रचक्रुः कुरु पाण्डवाः घोरे निशामुखे रौद्रे वर्तमाने सुदारुणे अवहारं ततः कृत्वा सहिताः कुरु पाण्डवाः न्यविशन्त यथा कालं गत्वा स्वशिबिरं तदा. One must wait until the 8th day of the war to read the descriptions of the moon, the war scenes and their comparisons with the moon. Duryodhana, who was surrounded by his servants with oil lamps in their hands on his way to meet Bhishma, is compared with the moon surrounded by planets. Bhishma Parva CE 93-30-31, GP 97-31 and 32. प्रदीपैः काञ्चनैस्तत्र गन्धतेला वसैचनैः परिवव्रुर्महात्मानं प्रज्वलद्भिः समन्ततः सतैः परिवृत्तो राजा प्रदीपैः काञ्चनैः शुभैः शुशुभे चन्द्रमा युक्तो दीप्तैरिव महाग्रहैः. 4.2.1.9 9th day of the war. The fierce fighting began when the sun was ready to set on the western horizon on the 9th day of the war. Bhishma Parva CE 101-33, GP 105-35. ततो युद्धं महाघोरं प्रावर्तत सुदारुणम् अपरां दिशमास्थाय द्योतमाने दिवाकरे. The sun set while Bhishma was fiercely killing the Pandava army, and the entire army, utterly exhausted, was hoping for the fight to cease. Bhishma Parva CE 102-78, GP 106-85. विमृदन् तस्तस्य तु पाण्डुसेना हस्तं जगामाथ सहस्ररश्मिः ततो बलानां श्रमकर्षितानां मनोवहारं प्रतिसम्बभूव. It is not clear when exactly the fighting stopped. For all Sanjaya tells Dhritarashtra is that he did not observe the fighting after this time. Bhishma Parva CE 103-1, GP 107-1. युध्यतामेव तेषां तु भास्करेस्तमुपागते संध्या समवद्धोरा नापश्याम ततोरणम्. However, it appears that fighting stopped soon after. Bhishma Parva CE 103-2-6, GP 107-2-6. ततो युधिष्ठिरो राजा संध्यां सन्दृश्य भारत वद्यमानं बलं चापि भीष्मेणामित्रघातिना मुक्तशस्त्रं परावृत्तं पलायन परायणं भीष्मं च युधि संरब्ध अनुयान्त महारथान्. सोमकांश्च जितान् दृष्ट्वा निरुत्साहान् महारथान् चिन्तयित्वा चिरं ध्यात्वा अवहारमरोचयत्. ततो वहारं सैन्यानां चक्रे राजा युधिष्ठिरः तथैव तव सैन्यानां वहारो ह्यभूत्तदा. ततो वहारं सैन्यानां कृत्वा तत्र महारथः नविष्यन्त कुरुश्रेष्ठ संग्रामे क्षतविक्षतः. 4.2.1.10 10th day of the war. On this day, Arjuna troubling Dushasan during the fight is compared with angry Rahu troubling the moon. Bhishma Parva CE 106:35 GP 110:37. दुःशासनं ततः क्रुद्धः पीडयामास पाण्डवः पर्वणीव सुसंक्रुद्धो राहुः पूर्णे निशाकरम्. The moon was described as rising with its pointed ends directed downwards on the 10th day of the war. Bhishma Parva CE 108:12 GP 112:12. अपसव्यं ग्रहाश्च क्रूरलक्ष्माणं निशाकरम् अवाक्षिराश्च भगवान् उदतिष्ठत चन्द्रमः. The rising of the moon with its pointed or non-smooth ends downward corroborates well with the rising or visible moon during Shukla Paksha of any month, that is bright half of the lunar month. While Bhishma killed many warriors on the battlefield, his entire body was filled with arrows. The sun was ready to set on the western horizon and Bhishma fell on the ground. However, his body was covered with arrows. It did not touch the ground. Bhishma noticed that the sun was still in Dakshinayan, and when he heard the voice wondering how come Bhishma decided to die during Dakshinayan, he murmured that he was still alive. Bhishma Parva CE 114 80-89 GP 119 86-97. अभिहत्य शरौध्यस्तं शतशोऽथ सहस्रशः न तस्यासीद निर्भिन्नं गात्रेष्वङ्गुलमात्रकम्. एवं विभो तव पिता शरैर्विषकलीकृतः शिताग्रहे फल्गुने नाजौ प्राक्षिरः प्रापद्रथात्. किञ्चिच्छेषे दिनकरे पुत्राणां तव पश्यताम् हा हेति दिवि देवानां पार्थिवानां च सर्वशः. पतमाने रथात् भीष्मे बभूव सुमहान् स्वनः तं पतन्तम् अभिप्रेक्ष्य महात्मानं पितामहं. सह भीष्मेण सर्वेषां प्रापत् हृदयानिनः स पपात महाबाहुर्वसुधामनुनादयन्. इन्द्रध्वज इवो सृष्टः केतुः सर्वधनुष्मतां धरणीं नास्पृश्यच्चापि शरसङ्गैः समाचितः. शरतल्पे महेश्वासं शयानं पुरुषर्षभं रथात् प्रपतितं चैवं दिव्यौ भावः समाविशत्. अभ्यवर्षत पर्जन्यः प्राकम्पत च मेदिनी पतंस ददृश्ये चापि खर्वितं च दिवाकरम्. सज्ञान् चैवालभद्विरः कालं सच्चिन्त्य भारत अन्तरिक्षे च शुश्राव दिव्यां वाचं समन्ततः. कथं महात्मा गाण्डेयः सर्वशस्त्रभृतां वरः कालं कर्ता नरव्याघ्रः सम्प्राप्ते दक्षिणायने. स्थितोऽस्मिति च गाण्डेयस्तच्छ्रुत्वा वाक्यमब्रवीत् धारयामास प्राणान् पतितोऽपि हि भूतले. उत्तरायणमन्विच्छ भीष्मः कुरु पितामहः. Bhishma was determined to stay alive with the help of the boon at his disposal by stating that he will remain alive until the sun turned northward, that is until the day of the winter solstice. Bhishma Parva CE 114:96-100 GP 119 103-109. तान ब्रवीच्छान्तनवो नाहं गन्ता कथञ्चन दक्षिणावृत्य आदित्ये एतन्मे मनसि स्थितं. गमिष्यामि स्वकं स्थानम् आसीद्यन्मे पुरातनम् उदगावृत्त आदित्ये हंसः सत्यं ब्रवीमि वः. धारयास्यम्यहं प्राणा उत्तरायणकाङ्क्षया ऐश्वर्यभूतः प्राणानाम् उत्सर्गे नियतो यहम्. तस्मात् प्राणान् धारयिष्ये मुमूर्षुरुदगायने. यश्च दत्तो वरो मह्यं पित्रा तेन महात्मना चन्दन्तो मृत्युरित्येवं तस्य चास्तु वरस्तथा. धारयिष्ये ततः प्राणानुत्सर्गे नियते सति इत्युक्त्वा तांस्तदा हंसान् शेतशरतल्पगाः. When Bhishma was surrounded by Arjuna and others, Bhishma stated that staying on this bed of arrows was appropriate for a Kshatriya and reiterated his decisions to stay in that condition until the sun turned northward, that is, until the day of the winter solstice. He asked the assembled kings to create a protective moat around him while he waited for the day of the winter solstice. Bhishma Parva CE 115 46-50 GP 120 49-54. एवमेतन् महाबाहो धर्मेषु परिनिष्ठितं सप्तव्यं क्षत्रियेणाज्यौ शरतल्पगतेन वै. एवमुक्त्वा तु बिभत्सुं सर्वांस्तान् ब्रवीद्वचः राज्ञश्च राजपुत्रांश्च पाण्डवेनाभिसंस्थितान् शयेयमस्यां शय्यायां यावदावर्तनं रवेः ये तदा पारयिष्यन्ति ते मां द्रक्ष्यन्ति वै नृपः। दिशं वैश्रवणाक्रान्तां यदा गन्ता दिवाकरः अर्चिष्मान् प्रतप्रल्लोकान् तथेनोत्तमतेजसा विमोक्षेऽहं तदा प्राणान् सुरदः सुप्रयानपि। परिखा खन्यतामत्र ममावसदने नृपः उपासिष्ये विवस्वन्तम् एवं शरशताचितः। उपारमध्यं सङ्ग्रामा द्वैराण्युत्सृज्य पार्थिवः। 4.2.1.11 11th day of the war. Drona became the head of Duryodhana's army. The day's battle ended with the sunset and darkness set in. Drona Parva CE 1548-51 GP 1649-53. सूरे चास्तमनुप्राप्ते रजसा चाभिसंवृते नाज्ञायत तदा शत्रुर्न सुर्हन्न च किंचन। ततो वहारं चक्रुस्ते द्रोणदुर्योधनादयः तान्विदित्वा भृशन् तस्तान् युद्धमनसः परान् स्वान्यनिकानि बिभित्सुः शनकैर्यवहारयत्। ततोऽभितुष्टुवुः पार्थं प्ररुष्टः पाण्डुसृञ्जयः पाञ्चालाक्षमनोज्ञाभिर्वाग्भिः सूर्यमिवर्षयः। एवं स्वशिबिरं प्रायान् जित्वा शत्रुन् धनञ्जयः पृष्ठतः सर्वसैन्यानां मुदितो वै सकेशवः। Arjuna, sitting in his chariot and surrounded by various jewels of his chariot on the 11th day of the war, is compared with the moon surrounded by nakshatras. Drona Parva CE 1552 GP 1654. मसार गल्वर्क सुवर्ण रूपे वज्र प्रवाल स्फटिकैश्च मुख्ये चित्रे रथे पाण्डुसुतो बभासे नक्षत्र चित्रे वियतीव चंद्रः। 4.2.1.12 12th day of the war. The descriptions of the war on the 12th day compare the white canopy of the chariot of the king Bhagadatta with the full moon near nakshatra Kritika. Drona Parva CE 1918 and GP 2017. Malyada Mavata Raja Shvetachatreena Dharyata Kritika Yogayuktena Paurnamasya Mivenduna. Ashwathama killed King Nil on this day, and the face of the King Nil looked like full moon. Drona Parva CE 3026 GP 3126. Sampurna Chandra Bhamukha Padmapatra Nibekshana Pranshurutpal Garbhabho Nihato Nyapatat Kshitau. Warriors on the both sides were utterly exhausted, and fighting stopped with the sunset. Drona Parva CE 3177 GP 3280. ततो बले वृषलुलिते परस्परं निरीक्षमाणे रुधिरौघ संप्लुते दिवाकरेस्तंगिरिमा स्थिते शनये रुभे प्रयाते शिबिराय भारत. 4.2.1.13 13th day of the war. Sindhu Naresh Jayadratha's chariot looked like the moon in the sky as he attacked Abhimanyu. Drona Parva CE 42-4 and GP 43-4. श्वेतच्छत्रपताकाभिश्चा मरव्यजनेन च सबभौ राजलिङ्गैस्तैसः तारापतिरिवाम्बरे. Abhimanyu fought bravely and killed many key warriors of the Kauravas. In the end, many warriors simultaneously attacked him, and the son of Dushyasana hit Abhimanyu with a club. Abhimanyu fell to the ground. Abhimanyu on the ground looked like the sun set on the western horizon, and like the eclipsed moon or like the dried ocean. Abhimanyu's face looked like the full moon. Drona Parva CE 48, 16 and 17, GP 49, 17 and 18. Vimruddha Tarushrungani Samnivruttamiva Astam Gatamivaadityam Taptva Bharatavahinim Upaluptam Yatha Somam संशुष्कमिव सागरं पूर्णचंद्रा भवदनं काकपक्षवृताक्षकम्. Many warriors expressed their displeasure at the way Abhimanyu was killed, as he looked like a fallen moon from the sky. The battlefield looked like the sky with the full moon surrounded by stars. Drona Parva CE 48-20, 22, GP 49, 21 and 23. अभिक्रोशन्ति भूतानि अंतरिक्षे विशाम्पते दृष्ट्वा निपतितं वीरं च्युतं चन्द्रमिवाम्बरात् तस्मिंस्तु निहते वीरे बाह्यशोभतमेदिनी द्यौर्यथा पूर्णचन्द्रेण नक्षत्रगणमालिनी. Kaurava army, tired and exhausted, retreated to their camps while the Pandava warriors stood in sadness as the sun set on the western horizon. Drona Parva CE 48 39-42 GP 50 1-4. वयं तु प्रवरं हत्वा तेषां तैः शरपीडितः निवेशायाभ्युपायाम सायाह्ने रुधिरोक्षितः निरीक्षमाणास्तु वयं परे चायोधनं शनैः अपयाता महाराज ग्लानिं प्राप्ता विचेतसः ततो निशाया दिवसस्य च शिवः शिवारुतः सन्धिरवर्तताद्भुतः कुशेशया पीडनिभे दिवाकरे विलम्बमाने स्तमुपेत्य पर्वतम् वरासीशक्य सृष्टि वरुणचर्मणां विभूषणाञ्च समाक्षेपन् प्रभां दिवञ्च भूमिञ्च समानयन्नेव प्रियां तनुं भानुरुपैति पावकम्. 4.2.1.14 14th day of the war. Arjuna fought bravely and killed Jayadratha by the end of the day. 7 Kaurava brothers attacked Bhima and the scene looked like 7 planets attacking the moon. Drona Parva CE 112-22 GP 137-22. Te Pidayan Bhimasenam Kruddhaha Sapta Maharathaha Praja Samharane Rajan Somam Sapta Graha Iva. The fighting continued throughout the night with a short break in between and then continued until the sunrise. 4.2.1.15 15th day of the war. Drishtadyumna killed Drona and angry Ashwathama defeated the Pandava army. The fighting continued throughout the day. 4.2.1.16 16th day of the war. Karna headed Duryodhana's army. The fierce fighting resumed and both parties killed warriors of the opposing side. The faces of these dead warriors looked like the full moon. Karna Parva CE 8-3 and GP 12-3. पूर्णचंद्रार्क पद्मानां कांतित्विक गंधतः समयः उत्तिमांगैर नृसिंहानां नृसिंहास्तस्तरुर्महिम्. Arjuna killed many Samshaptak warriors and generated a pile of their bodies. These faces appeared like the full moon. Karna Parva CE 12-4 and GP 16-5. Shirosyanmathya Viranam Shitair Ballair Dhananjayah पूर्णचंद्रा भवक्त्राणि स्वक्षिभ्रू दशनानि च संतस्तार क्षितिं क्षिप्रं विनालयन लिनैरिव. The battlefield was soon covered with the full moon-like faces of the warriors. These scenes looked like a spread of lotuses and other flowers like the starry sky of the Sharad season. Karna Parva CE 1450 and GP 1949-50. चंद्र नक्षत्र भासैश्च वदनैश्चारु कुण्डलैः क्लरप्तश्मश्रुभिरत्यर्थं वीराणां समलंकृतैः वदनैः पश्य संचनान् महीं शोणितकर्दमाम्. चंद्र नक्षत्र भासैश्च वदनैश्चारु कुण्डलैः क्लरुप्तश्मश्रुभिराकीर्णि पूर्णचंद्र निभैर्महिम्. कर्णपर्व GP 1950-51. कुमुदोत्पल पद्मानां खण्डैः फुल्लं यथा सरः तथा महिभृतां वक्त्रैः कुमुदोत्पल सन्निभैः तारागण विचित्रस्य निर्मलेन्दु द्युतित्विषः पश्चेमां नभसस्तुल्यां शरन्नक्षत्रमालिनीम्. Ashwathama killed the king of Pandya and the face of the king looked like the moon between two Vishakha nakshatras. Karna Parva CE 1542 GP 2048. शिरश्च तत्पूर्ण शशिप्रभाननं सरोष ताम्रायतनेत्रमुन्नसं क्षितौ विबभ्राजपतत्स्कुण्डलं विशाखयोर्मध्यगतः शशि यथा. The fallen faces of the battlefield appeared like the full moon. They also appeared like the stars in the sky. Karna Parva CE 1928 GP 2734. सकुण्डलानि स्वक्षिणि पूर्णचंद्र निभानि च शिरांस्युर्व्यामदृश्यन्त तारागण इवांबरे. The dust and the setting of the sun created darkness. Warriors were terrified of the fighting during the night, so they returned to their camps. कर्णपर्व CE 21:35-41 GP 30:37-43 एवं तेषां तदा युद्धे संसक्तानां जयैषिणां गिरिमस्तं समासाद्य प्रत्यपद्यत भानुमान् तमसा च महाराज रजसा च विशेषतः न किंचित् प्रत्यपश्याम शुभं वा यदि वा शुभं तेऽत्र सन्तो महेश्वासा रात्रियुद्धस्य भारत अपयानं ततश्चक्रुः सहिताः सर्ववाजिभिः कौरवेषु च यातेषु तदा राजन् दिनक्षये जयं सुमनस्सः प्राप्य पार्थाः स्वशिबिरं ययुः वादित्रशब्दैर्विविधैः सिंहनादैश्च नर्तितैः परावहन् सन्तश्च सुवन्तश्चाच्युतार्जनौ कृते वहारे तैर्वीरैः सैनिकाः सर्व एव ते आशिषाः पाण्डवै येषु प्रायुज्यन्त नरेश्वरः ततः कृते वहारे च प्रहर्ष्टाः कुरु पाण्डवाः निशायां शिबिरं गत्वा न्यविशन्त नरेश्वरः 4.2.1.17 17th day of the war. The fighting resumed with the sunrise and Arjuna went on defeating various kings and the battlefield filled with the faces of fallen kings looked like the full moon. Karna Parva GP 46-62 विशाला यततां राक्षैः पूर्णचन्द्रनिभाननैः एषा बहु कीर्यते राज्ञां शिरोभिरपलायिनाम् Drushtadhyumna was protected by the 5 sons of Draupadi and the scene looked like the moon protected by 5 bright stars. Karna Parva CE 32:6 GP 47:6 Parshatam त्वभिसन्तस्तुर द्रौपदेय युयुत्सवः सानुगा भीम वपुषश्चन्द्रं तारागणा इव पार्षतं जुगुपुः सर्वे द्रौपदेया युयुत्सवः दिव्यवर्मा युधधराः शार्दूलमसविक्रमः Yudhishthira's chariot was protected by 2 Panchal warriors and the scene looked like the moon protected by 2 Punarvasus. Karnaparva CE 33:15-16 GP 49:27-28 ततक्षुराभ्यां पाञ्चाल्यौ चक्ररक्षौ महात्मनः जघान समरे शूरः शैरैः सन्तनपर्वभिः तावुभौ धर्मराजस्य प्रवीरो परिपार्श्वतः रथाभ्यासे चकाशेते चन्द्रस्यैव पुनर्वसु ततः क्षूराभ्यां पाञ्चाल्यौ चक्ररक्षौ महात्मनः जघानचन्द्रदेवञ्च दण्डधारञ्च संयुगे तावुभौ धर्मराजस्य प्रवीरो परिपार्श्वतः रथाभ्यासे चकाशेते चन्द्रस्यैव पुनर्वसु Bhima killed Vivitsu and the face of fallen Vivitsu looked like a full moon. Karna Parva CE 35:11 GP 51:12 विवित्सोस्तु ततः क्रुद्धो भल्लेनापहरच्छिरः सकुण्डलशिरस्त्राणं पूर्णचन्द्रोपमं तदा भीमेन च महाराज सपपात हतो भुवि Arjuna killed the younger brother of King Sudakshina, king of Kamboja, and the face of the fallen warriors looked like the full moon. Karna Parva CE 40:104 GP 56:111 अस्यास्यतोर्धचन्द्राभ्यां सबाहु परिघोपमौ पूर्णचन्द्रा भवक्त्रं च क्षुरेणाभ्य हनच्छिरः Karna looked like the moon on the eastern horizon and the canopy of Karna's chariot looked like the full moon. Karna Parva CE 43:38-39 GP 60:40-41 पश्यकर्णं रणे पार्थ स्वेच्छवि विराजितम् उदयं पर्वत यद्वच्छो भयन्वये दिवाकरः पूर्णचन्द्रनिकाशेन मूर्ध्निछत्रेण भारत गृह्यमाणेन समरे तथा शतशलाकिना पश्यकर्णं रणे पार्थ श्वेतच्छत्र विराजितम् उदयं पर्वतं यद्वच्छ शाङ्केनाभिशोभितं रहा पूर्णचन्द्रनिकाशेन मूर्ध्निच्छत्रेण भारत गृह्यमाणेन समरे श्रीमच्छतशलाकिना Bhima looked like the full moon surrounded by Kaurava warriors. Karna Parva CE 55:33-34 GP 77:33-35 सतैः परिवृत्तः शूरैः शूरो राजन् समन्ततः शुशुभे भरतश्रेष्ठ नक्षत्रैरिव चन्द्रमः स रराज तथा संख्ये दर्शनीयो नरोत्तमः निर्विशेषं महाराज यथा हि विजयस्तथा सतैः परिवृत्तः शूरैः शूरो राजन् समन्ततः शुशुभे भरतश्रेष्ठो नक्षत्रैरिव चन्द्रमः परिवेशी यथा सोमः परिपूर्णो विराजते सरराज तथा संख्ये दर्शनीयो नरोत्तमः निर्विशेषो महाराज यथा हि विजयस्तथा. The Pandava army felt happy to see Yudhishthira return to the battlefield, not unlike the joy people feel when they see the moon coming out of the eclipse. Karna Parva GP 89-71 Tathopayatam Yudhidharmarajam Drashtva muda sarvabhutanyanandan Rahor vimuktam vimalam samagram Chandram yathaiva bhyuditam tathaiva. Arjuna killed Karna towards the end of the day, and Karna's face fallen on the ground looked like the midday sun of the Sharad season. Karna Parva CE 67-24 GP 91-52 Tadudyatatidya samana varchasam Sharannabho madhyaga bhaskaropamam Varangamurvyam patachamupate Ardivakaro stadiva raktamandalaha. Karna's face fallen on the ground looked like the full moon. Karna Parva GP 94-37 Charuvesh dharam veeram Charu mauli shirodharam Tanmukham Sutaputrasya Purna Chandra Samadyuti. The sun set after the death of Karna. Karna Parva CE 68-47 GP 94-49 Hatesma Karne Sarito Nastravanti Jagam Chastam Kalusho Divakaraha Grahascha Tiryak Jwalitarka Varno Yamasya Putro Bhyutidaya Rajan. Krishna and Arjuna returned to their camp. Kaurava warriors ran away from the battlefield, terrified and exhausted. Bhima and other warriors chased them and fighting continued. Krupacharya persuaded Duryodhana to stop the fight and ask forgiveness from Yudhishthira. Duryodhana decided to continue the fight, and all Kaurava warriors returned to the battlefield and spent the night on the battlefield. Shalya Parva CE 5-1-3 GP 6-1-3 Athaimavate prasthe stitva yuddhami nandinah sarva eva maharaj yodhastatra samagataha shalyascha chitrasenescha shakunischa maharatah ashwathama krupaschaiva कृतवर्मा च सात्वतः सुषेणोरिष्टसेनेश्च द्रुतसेन वीर्यवान् जयत्सेनश्च राजानस्ते रात्रिमुषितास्ततः. Duryodhana made Shalya the leader of his army. They did not return to their camps and instead slept on the battlefield. Shalya Parva CE 5-18 and 19 GP 6-19 and 20 Ayam kulena virena tejasa yashasa shriya sarvairgunaihe samuditaha shalyo nostu chamupatihi bhagine yani janstyaktva krutadnyo smanupagataha mahaseno mahabahur mahasena ivaparaha. Shalya Parva CE 6-20 GP 7-23 Praharsham prapya senatu tavaki bharatarshab tam ratrim sukhini supta swasthachitteva sabhavat. 4.2.1.18 18th day of the war. When the night was over, Duryodhana asked his warriors to be ready. Shalya Parva CE 7-1 GP 8-1 Vyatitayam Rajanyam tu Raja Duryodhanastada Abravitta Vakan Sarvan Sanyhantam Maharathaha. Duryodhana was standing in the middle of the battlefield, surrounding by his bodyguards, and the canopy of his chariot looked like the full moon. Shalya Parva CE 23-4 GP 24-4 Yatrai Tatsu Mahachatram Purna Chandra Samaprabham Yatrai Te Satalatrana Rathas Tishtanti Danshitaha. Duryodhana, fallen in the battlefield and surrounded by dust, looked like the full moon surrounded by a ring of darkness. Shalya Parva CE 64-6 GP 65-6 and 7 Mahavata Samuthena Sanshushkamiva Sagaram Purnachandra Miva Vyomni Tushara Vrutamandalam. Duryodhana sent the message and made Ashwathama the leader of his side. While Ashwathama left along with Krupacharya and Kritavarma, Duryodhana stayed lying on the ground through the night. Shalya Parva CE 64 40-43 GP 65 43-46 Radnyastu vachanam shrutva krupaha sharadvatastataha द्रौणीं राज्ञो नियोगेन सेनापत्येभ्य शेचयत् सोऽभिषिक्तो महाराज परिष्वज्य नृपोत्तमम्. प्रययौ सिंहनादेन दिशः सर्वा विनादयन् दुर्योधनोऽपि राजेन्द्र शोणितौघ परिलुप्तः तां निशां प्रतिपेदेथ सर्वभूतभयावहाम् अपक्रम्य तुते तूर्णं तस्मादायो धनान्नृप शोकसंविग्धमनसश्चिन्ताध्यानपराभवन्. Ashwathama along with Kripacharya and Kritavarma attacked the Pandava camp at night, killing Shikhandi, Drishtadyumna, the 5 sons of Draupadi and other warriors. 4.2.1.19 First day after the war was over. Bhima and Arjuna humbled Ashwathama, and the Kuru women came to the battlefield searching for the bodies of their loved ones. Gandhari compared faces of the Balik king and Madrara Shalya with the full moon. Stri Parva CE 22.6 GP 22.6 Ativa Mukhavarnosya Nihatasyapi Shobhate Somasevabhipurnasya Paurnamasya Samudyataha. Stri Parva CE 23.4 GP 23.4 Aho Dikpashya Shalyasya Purnachandra Sudarshanam Mukham Padma Palashaksham Vadaira Dashtamav Vranam. 4.2.2 Positions and Phases of the Moon. Let's emphasize the evidence of the phases of the moon through 18 days of the war in the context of 4 specific positions of the moon. The first position refers to the full moon-like moon on the 12th day of the war near Nakshatra Kritika. Drona Parva CE 1918 GP 2017 Malyadam Avataraja Shvetachatreena Dharyata Kritika Yoga Yuktena Paurnamasya Mevenduna. The second position, 2 references, refers to the moon on the 16th day of the war. 1 between Vrishchika and 2nd surrounded by 5 bright stars. Both descriptions can be interpreted to be near the point of Nakshatra Ardra Punarvasu, especially in the year 5561 BCE. Karna Parva CE 1542 GP 2048 Shirascha Tatpurna Shashi Prabhananam Saroshatamra Yatanetra Munnasam Kshitau Vibhabhraj Patatskundalam Vishakhayor Madhyagataha Shashi Yatha. Karna Parva CE 32.6 GP 47.6 Parshatam Twabhisannasthur Draupadeya Yutsavaha Sanuga Bhima Vapushashchandram Taragana Iva Parshatam Jugupuhu Sarve Draupadeya Yutsavaha Divyavarma Yudhadharaha Shardula Masa Vikramaha Sanuga Dipta Vapushashchandram Taragana Iva. This hunch is further confirmed when we have a crisp reference of moon near Punarvasu on the 17th day of the war. Karna Parva CE 33:15 and 16 GP 49 27 and 28 Tatah Kshurabhyam Panchalyo Chakrarakshau Mahatmanaha Jaghan Samare Shuraha Sharaihe Sannata Parvabhihi Tavubhau Dharmarajasya Pravirau Pariparshvataha Rathabhyashe Chakashete Chandraseva Punarvasu Tatah Kshurabhyam Panchalyo Chakrarakshau Mahatmanaha Jaghan Chandradevancha Dandadharam Cha Sanyuge Tavubhau Dharmarajasya Pravirau Pariparshataha Rathabhyashe Chakashete Chandraseva Punarvasu. These references of positions and phases of the moon from 12th through 17th day of the war allow us to assert this as lunar month of Margashirsha and specifically Shukla Paksha of the lunar month of Margashirsha. This identification of Margashirsha Shukla Paksha is due to 1. The description of the phases of the moon 1st through 18th day of the war were of waxing fortnight, and 2nd, the fact that the full moon descriptions occur during positions of the moon near Nakshatra Kritika through Punarvasu with Nakshatra Mrigashirsha as the central nakshatra. 4.3 Lunar calendar evidence. 4.3.1 Lower limit of the first day of the war. The Mahabharata text refers to Kartika as the full moon occurring prior to the first day of the Mahabharata war. Bhishma Parva CE 223 GP 223 Alakshyaha Prabhaya Hinaha Paurnamasim Chakartikim Chandro Budagni Varnascha Samavarne Nabastale. The Mahabharata text also refers to Chaturdashi of Vadya Paksha, that is waning fortnight, occurring prior to first day of Mahabharata war. Bhishma Parva CE 331 GP 331 मांसवर्षं पुनस्तीव्र मासित कृष्ण चतुर्दशीम अर्धरात्रे महाघोरम तृप्यम तत्र राक्षसः. These two astronomy observations allow us to set Kartika Amavasya as the lower limit of the Tithi for the first day of the war. 4.3.2 Upper limit of the day of Bhishma Nirvana. The Mahabharata text contains two references that allow us to set the upper limit not only on the Tithi of Bhishma Nirvana but also the Tithi for the first day of the war. Both references occur in Ashwamedha Parva, where references are made to the future event of Chaitra full moon day. Vyasa tells Yudhishthira the latter should be given Diksha of Ashwamedha Yajna on the upcoming Chaitra full moon day. Ashwamedha Parva, CE 71-4, GP 72-4. Chaitriam hi Paurnamasyancha tava Diksha bhavishyati sambharaha sambriyantate yathartham purushar shabha. Arjuna asked King Vajradatta of Pragjyotisha to arrive in Hastinapura on the day of Chaitra full moon when Ashwamedha Yajna was scheduled to take place. Ashwamedhika CE 75-25 GP 76-25. Agacheta Maharaja Param Chaitri Mupastitam Tadashwamedho Bhavita Dharmarajasya Dhimataha. Summary 1. Most of the 18 days of Mahabharata war took place during the first part or first month of the Sharat season. Second, the Mahabharata war began around Amavasya plus or minus 1 day and ended 3 to 4 days after the full moon day. That is, the war began and took place during the Shukla Paksha or waxing phase of the lunar month. 3. The Mahabharata war indeed began with the day of Amavasya and took place during the lunar month of Margashirsha. 4. The inference of the war beginning with Amavasya and thus taking place during the Shukla Paksha of the lunar month of Margashirsha is further validated by references to the occurrence of Kartika Purnima and Kartika Krishna Chaturdashi prior to the first day of the Mahabharata war. 5. The inference in number 4 is further corroborated by occurrence of Chaitra Purnima long after the day of Bhishma Nirvana. The story continues in chapter 5.